The Atlanta Hawks made a very surprising move at the deadline by trading Kristaps Porzingis to the Golden State Warriors for Buddy Hield and Jonathan Kuminga. Wow. We're going to get into it, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on that move. But before I get started on that, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and tell a friend, tell a family member, tell whoever to support my channel. And yes, the Atlanta Hawks made a very surprising trade, along with a couple of other moves that they did at the deadline. But among the moves that they did, the surprising move that happened was the Hawks trading Kristaps Porzingis to the Golden State Warriors for Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield. And man, I'm going to be honest with y'all. When I saw that trade pop up on my social media feed, the Hawks trading Kristaps Porzingis for Jonathan Kuminga, I was shocked. I was shocked because, look, I'm not surprised that the Hawks traded Kristaps Porzingis, but I am very surprised at the return that they got in Jonathan Kuminga, because I didn't see this coming. I did not think that the Atlanta Hawks would be interested going in Jonathan Kuminga. I just didn't. And look, I want to get my thoughts on this trade that happened involving the Hawks and the Warriors, with Jonathan Kuminga coming to my Hawks, along with Buddy Hield is. Look, when it comes to Porzingis, look, man, I don't care what anybody says. Kristaps Porzingis had to go. It was time for him to move on. The Hawks had to get rid of him because Kristaps Porzingis, the amount of games that this man has missed over the entirety of this season for the Hawks, and the lengths that this dude will find a way to miss games, whether it's with an Achilles injury or with a sickness, it was flat out disgusting, absolutely disgusting, the amount of games that Kristaps Porzingis has missed for the Atlanta Hawks. And I'm gonna be honest, I reached my limit with Kristaps Porzingis when he missed a month with an Achilles issue, nearly a month with an Achilles issue, and then on an injury report, it says that he's questionable to play, which means there was a chance he was going to play. It seemed like he was going to be healthy enough to play, and then a few hours later, he's out because of an illness. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, trade this dude already. Just trade him. I didn't care what we got back in return. Just get rid of this dude, because Kristaps Porzingis. The truth of the matter is, with Kristaps Porzingis, in my opinion, is the reason the Atlanta Hawks are under 500 right now, because he's missed a lot of games. He's been the epicenter of being unreliable. He's never available, and I'll take the L. I'm gonna take the loss on Kristaps Porzingis, because when the Hawks made that move, I said on his YouTube channel right when it happened, which is, I guess, has now been 8 months ago. Like, I said that the risk was worth it getting Porzingis despite his health issues, and I gotta take the L. I gotta take the loss on Kristaps Porzingis. It's been a loss for the Hawks. It's been a massive flop getting Kristaps Porzingis. And look, when he's been on the court, he's been productive for the Hawks, right? He's been a very productive player for the Hawks, but he's never available, man. Like, that's just the nature of the beast with Porzingis. He's never available. You can't count on him from a health standpoint. If he doesn't have an Achilles issue, he has an elbow issue. He has a hand issue. He has an ankle issue. He has a knee issue. And if it's not either of that, he's sick. I mean, it's just one thing after another with Kristaps Porzingis. And look, I don't want to bang on Kristaps Porzingis too hard, but I'm kind of at the point with him where I think his career is nearly over in the NBA. I think I'll be shocked if Kristaps Porzingis is playing in the NBA in about 2 years. Like, I'm just being honest about it, because I just don't think you can rely on him. And so I think the Hawks moving on from him absolutely was necessary and absolutely was the right thing to do. But what the Hawks got back for him, like I said in the intro, I was shocked that the Hawks turned their attention to getting Jonathan Kuminga. And look, with Jonathan Kuminga, we all know there's been a lot of drama with him with the Warriors, right? The Warriors have been wanting to move, they've held this man hostage, right? With Jonathan Kuminga, he's been held hostage with the Warriors. The Warriors have been, it's like they want to move him, but they're hoping to get the right return. And it's like if they don't want to get the right return, they'll just keep him, even though it seems like the Warriors want to move him. It's just been an act of just self-sabotage when it comes to the Warriors in the Jonathan Kuminga situation. Because the truth of the matter is with the Warriors is they should have moved Jonathan Kuminga like 2 years ago when he was playing well and he had some type of value. They should have moved him then, but they never did. And they're paying the brutes of it. And they were forced to settle for Kristaps Porzingis, the guy that's been Mr. Unreliable. I mean, to Warrior fans, I'm just gonna send y'all a warning. Like, enjoy. Good luck when it comes to Kristaps Porzingis. Maybe he'll magically play every game from here on out, but I doubt it. But back to Kuminga. It's an interesting move for the Hawks, getting Jonathan Kuminga. Like I said, this is a guy that he was a high draft pick in 2021. And he's been up and down, like the flashes of talent is there. He's had stretches of play where he's been productive and pretty good, but there's been other stretches where he's been unproductive, and it feels like he's kind of been lost in the shuffle when Steve Kerr's system, which is not really an easy system for a few players to run. And so he hasn't been, so it feels like with Jonathan Kuminga, like it just hasn't worked well with the Warriors and how Steve Kerr likes to play basketball, right? And even though he's put up some numbers over some decent stretches, and he was pretty good earlier in the year for the Warriors. I think he was averaging like 17 points a game in his first 11 games, and so he's capable of this production, but it just feels like it's never come together for Kuminga. Despite his athletic tools, like this is a guy that's 6'9". He's athletic. He can get to the basket. He can overpower weaker defenders, right? He's awesome in transition. He can grab and go. He's shown flashes of having a little bit of a mid-range game. And he's athletic. Like you see glimpses of maybe he can be like a mini Jalen Brown type of an athlete, right? And so you see the talent with Kuminga, but it's not consistent. And so when I look at this move for the Hawks, look, I'll be honest. Like when the trade first happened, I had some mixed reactions. I had some mixed feelings. Like my reaction to this move was like, huh? What? Jonathan Kuminga? What are we doing? Like that was my reaction in the intermediate when the Hawks made this trade. And then I started to sleep on it. And then I started to think about it more. And then I started analyzing the Jonathan Kuminga move. And the more I think about it, the more I've come to realize that I think getting Jonathan Kuminga is a worthwhile gamble, considering the fact that the Hawks didn't have to give up anything to get Jonathan Kuminga. They didn't give up any first-round picks. They didn't give up any key players. They didn't give up Jalen Johnson or Nikhil or Dyson or even Ricochet or Nyeka. Like, they didn't give up any of those guys. And they didn't give up any picks. They only gave up Kristaps Porzingis, the guy that's become Mr. Unreliable. And they got back a 23-year-old young, talented player. And I think it's a worthwhile move for the Hawks, man. Like, why not? Like, why not? Why not take a gamble on Jonathan Kuminga to see how he looks, because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to the Hawks, is as good as Jalen Johnson is, and I love me some Jalen Johnson. He's been awesome. He's deserving of being an all-star. He's had a terrific year. And as much as I love what Nickeil Alexander-Walker has brought to the team, and Dyson Daniels is what he's done on the court defensively, this team still needs more high-end talent. It's just the facts. This team still needs high-end talent. Despite having Jalen Johnson and Nickeil and Dyson, this team still needs high-end talent. And look, I'm not saying Jonathan Kuminga is a guy that's going to be a high-end talented player. Like, he has ways to go, but he has talent. Like, he has ability. He has potential. And we've seen dudes in their second contract on a new team, kind of the light bulb comes off and they find their niche. Like, we see it often in the NBA. And I look at Jonathan Kuminga and I'm like, you know what? Why not? Why not take a flyer on him? Now look, I haven't always been the biggest fan of him as a player, considering what he was doing in Golden State. Like, his 3-point shooting hasn't quite been there. You know, the rebounding, not great. He's not really a high-end passer. Defensively, he can be a little inconsistent. You know, his decision-making can get a little haywire. And so there are things that he wasn't doing in Golden State that makes him a polarizing player, and why not a lot of teams wanted him. And obviously he was benched with the Warriors. You know, Steve Kerr benched him for whatever reason. You know, like, so there's some flaws here. But there's no denying the talent. Like, it's just, you know, Kuminga is a talented player, and we've seen him produce and get you 20 points a game, you know, and showcase his athleticism and become a factor on a team. And so, look, man, like I said, there's some flaws in his game. I also kind of wonder how he'll fit. I'm interested to see how he would fit if he was playing with Jalen Johnson. You know, considering the shooting limitations that Kuminga has, I don't know if he'll fit with Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson if all three are on the court together. So you might have to tinker and, you know, and play two instead of all three together, mismatch lineups and things of that nature. And so that's some things that you're gonna have to figure out. But at the same time, man, like, I'm okay with the Hawks taking a chance on talent. You know, especially when you don't have to give up anything to get that talent. And I think that's the key here with the Hawks, with Jonathan Kuminga. They didn't have to give up anything. You know, they didn't have to give up Jalen Johnson or Dyson Daniels or Risha Shea or Nickeil or even Onyeka. Like, they didn't have to give up any of those pieces. They didn't even have to give up CJ McCollum. Like, you got this dude for free without giving up anything. And look, I think the thing with Kuminga is, like, he's on his next deal is a team option. And so you can take a chance on him, see how he looks, and look, if he plays really well, then maybe you keep him. You know, maybe you sign him to a short-term extension or something. You know, if you're comfortable with him. Or maybe if he doesn't work out and he just plays bad, then you know what? You can cut your losses, you move on, and you have no issues. And so it creates a lot of flexibility having Kuminga on your team. And also keep this in mind. Ansi Salah, the new general manager, where did he come from? He came from Golden State. He's familiar with Jonathan Kuminga. He was around Jonathan Kuminga when they drafted him in Golden State. He was around him, you know, and seeing how he works and how he's developed his game and worked hard and what he does. Like, so you have a general manager who's from Golden State who's familiar with Jonathan Kuminga. And so I think that part matters as well. And I think what we're also seeing with Ansi Salah in some of the acquisitions that he's made over the past year, you know, when you're talking about drafting Asa Newell, getting Kristaps Porzingis, even though that move didn't work out, you know, signing Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And now you're seeing it with trading for Jonathan Kuminga. Ansi Salah loves big, rangy athletes. Like, he's trying to long term. You kind of see the vision. Like, Dyson Daniels, 6'7". Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 6'5", 6'6". Jalen Johnson is 6'8", 6'9". Risha Shea is 6'9", 6'10". Onyeka Okongwu is 6'9". Asa Newell, 6'9". Athletes, all of them, big, rangy athletes. That's the kind of team that Ansi Salah wants to build with the Hawks, and that's gonna matter when it comes to draft time. You know, if the Hawks have a top 4 pick, AJ DeBenza, big, rangy athlete. Caleb Wilson, big, rangy athlete. Darren Peterson, you know, I'm not gonna say he's big or rangy, but he's an athlete. You know, at 6'5". You know, so those are things those are things to consider as well. You know, as far as what the Hawks could be looking at come draft time, especially if that pick from the New Orleans Pelicans and Milwaukee Bucks ends up being a top 4 pick. You know, I'm just saying. And so those are things to keep in mind as well. But, you know, when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga again, man, I was pretty surprised when that trade was announced. And I saw that the Hawks traded Kristaps Porzingis for Jonathan Kuminga. I was pretty surprised. You know, but just like I said, man, after thinking about it and analyzing it a little more, you know, it makes some sense. You know, especially you didn't give up anything. You know, why not take a chance on talent? You know, why not? The Hawks are not going to win the NBA championship this year. You know, they're likely not going to go on a deep playoff run. And so I'm okay with them taking a chance on talent. And I think the one thing that Jonathan Kuminga is going to bring to the Hawks, something that I think has been lacking on this team, is somebody that can take the ball to the basket, finish at the rim, and get to the free throw line. I think that's something that I think Jonathan Kuminga can add to this team. Because the Hawks are 29th in the league in free throw attempts. This is a team that doesn't get to the free throw line a lot. There's only one guy on this team that actually gets to the paint and gets to the line and finishes. This is Jalen Johnson. He's the only guy. Nobody else on this team draws fouls and gets to the paint. And so that's an element to the team that I think Jonathan Kuminga is going to bring. And so, look, man, he's not a perfect player. You know, he has flaws. There's a reason why the Golden State Warriors have been trying to have looked at moving him, and why there hasn't been a lot of takers that's willing to give up real assets for Jonathan Kuminga. He has flaws. And there's absolutely a world where this thing just doesn't work out for the Hawks and they end up moving on from him in the offseason and they have all the cap space. Like, that's definitely in play for this team. But as I've been saying consistently, man, I think the Hawks are kind of in a position where they should be taking a chance on potential high-end talent, especially high-end talent that's this young. You know, like a Jonathan Kuminga. He's 23 years old. He is a young man, Jonathan Kuminga, and he's an athlete, and he has talent. He has talent. And so for the Hawks, even if I don't think the fit is perfect, and even if he has flaws, and look, there's a world where this doesn't work and he doesn't fit. This absolutely in play. But I admire Ansi Salah for taking risks and taking chances. And by the way, this wasn't the only trade the Hawks made. The Hawks have made 4 trades in a span of 5 days. 4 trades in a span of 5 days. And 5 trades, if you count the Trae Young trade, he's made 5 trades in a month, in 1 month. And so Ansi Salah, man, he ain't afraid of making trades. He ain't afraid of making moves. Got traded Trae Young for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. Traded Vit Krejci for 2 second-round picks from Portland. Traded salary to get Jock Landale from the Utah Jazz. Traded Luke Kennard to the Lakers. No, that's a move I'm not sure about that move. I think Luke Kennard's been pretty good for the Hawks. But, hey, you know, if he ain't part of the future, you know, it is what it is. You traded him and got a second-round pick for him. And obviously you got the Jonathan Kuminga move. And so honestly, Salah's making he's doing work, man. He's making stuff happen. And I admire him for it, man. He's trying to better his team out. He's trying to better the Hawks up for the long term. And I got it, and I respect it. And so, look, man, this Jonathan Kuminga move, I was surprised when it happened. And I was surprised, I was surprised when they traded Kristaps Porzingis for Kuminga, because I'll be honest, I was kind of the mind that I thought the Hawks were going to keep Porzingis, and that they weren't going to be able to move him. But hey, I'm happy that they did. I'm happy that they moved Porzingis, because it was time for him to go, and they got Jonathan Kuminga back for him. And you know what? I'm okay with it. I think it's a worthwhile gamble.